To develop aviation, a lot of experiments need to be made, a lot of projects get done, and eventually, not all come into fruition. As it is well known, the United States Air Force is the biggest air force in the world, and therefore have had many projects relating fighter jet programs over the years that have been abandoned, though sometimes they might be reworked to be a very different type of aircraft and do end up entering service. Today, we're going to focus on 5 fighter jet programs that the United States abandoned and why they did it. Number 1. One of the most popular jets the U.S. abandoned was in 1991, the famously nicknamed Flying Dorito, a General Dynamics and a McDonnell Douglas, a 12 Avenger II that was intended to be a carrier-based stealth bomber that would replace the Grumman A-6 Intruder, with the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps being the most peculiar and eye-catching jet that had come into service. No aircraft of this type was built. The closest it got was to a mock-up since it went over budget, had design problems, and it was behind schedule since the U.S. didn't need to acquire such expensive and advanced aircraft after the Soviet Union collapse. It was one of the most expensive cancellations in U.S. history, with $5 billion spent on the development of this jet. Number 2. The Northrop F-15 Cobra was abandoned by the United States Air Force back in 1975. It was a response to the Air Force requirement for lightweight fighter technology built by Northrop. However, the Cobra lost to the highly popular F-16 Fighting Falcon, the world's most common fighter jet in service nowadays. The program was picked up again by the Navy, and the aircraft was enlarged and selected for the Naval Fighter Attack Experimental Program, becoming the successful F-A-18 Hornet, and it still remains in production as the modernized F-A-18 Super Hornet. Number 3. Being called the best U.S. fighter jet never built, the Tigershark F-20 built by Northrop was an evolution of a 1950s jet, the F-5 Supersonic Light Fighter. Northrop built 3 prototypes in the 70s that sported modern avionics, a flexible radar, and were much more capable fighter jets, considered competitive with the F-16 Fighting Falcon, but much cheaper. With the U.S. restricted export of frontline fighters to trusted allies, Northrop had high hopes that the Tigershark would prove successful in the export market. However, the U.S. opened up the F-16 for export, and the F-20 was soon outcompeted. Eventually, the project was abandoned in 1986, and the Northrop F-5s remain in service in many air forces in the world, being sometimes the only combat aircraft in inventory. Number 4. The Rockwell XF12 VTOL fighter jet prototype was built for the U.S. Navy as an attempt to combine the capabilities of the F-4 Phantom II with vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. It was intended to operate off the small aircraft carrier concept called the Sea Control Ship, but it was unable to demonstrate an untethered vertical takeoff and meet other performance requirements, and was abandoned in 1981. The Harrier jump jet became the VSTOL, a naval aircraft of the U.S. Navy and its allies that the Rockwell never was, and the Royal Navy made the Harrier famous during the Falklands conflict in 1982. Number 5. A design that also competed with the Rockwell XF12, and it was also abandoned, was the Convair Model 200, also designed for the Navy requirements for its Sea Control Ship concept as a supersonic vertical takeoff and landing fighter. Convair also intended to build versions for conventional catapult launches and landings using arresting gear. But even if it was abandoned, parts of this jet were still used later on the groundwork for the F-135 PW600 design of the Lockheed Martin F-35B, and this was one of the reasons why Lockheed outcompeted Boeing to build the F-35, because it demonstrated far superior short takeoff and vertical landing capabilities. This was all for today. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Big Aviation for more.